Ron Johnson is, I think he's one of the richest members of the Senate. He's very wealthy, this guy. And he's also one of the dumbest. And he went on some right-wing radio show, and he made a claim that generated headlines because what he says is beyond absurd.
And by the way, I not only tested positive, but then I tested for antibodies at a whopping level. So I had it, but I didn't have any symptoms. How do you explain that? Why would we just automatically assume that our natural immunity is going to be awful? It's going to be non-existent when generally you think the default position would be, if you've already had it, you're probably pretty well protected. Why have we assumed the worst? Why have we assumed that the body's natural immune system isn't the marvel that it really is? Why do we think that we can create something better than God in terms of combating disease? Now, there are certain things we have to do, but we have just made so many assumptions, and it's all pointed toward everybody getting a vaccine.
Yeah, because it gives you 90% protection against severe illness, hospitalization, and death. People who don't get the vaccine are 10 times more likely to be hospitalized and have severe illness than people who do get the vaccine. That's why they're trying to get everybody the vaccine. Now, yes, it is true. If you have natural immunity, I think that should count as like you've been vaxxed. I do think that. But I don't know if you caught what he said there in the middle, but he effectively said, well, God's vaccine is better than the COVID vaccine. This is an argument we've heard a lot recently, this notion of like, well, your immune system is more complex and intricate and incredible than anything that, we can come up with. So really the best vaccine is just getting COVID. This is what Matt Gaetz said recently too. There's over 825,000 Americans dead from COVID. There's over 5 million people in the world who've died from COVID. And by the way, let me say, despite one of the common narratives that's out there nowadays, those numbers are actually way higher. It is a historical truism in every pandemic that during the pandemic, the deaths are way undercounted and the infections are way undercounted. Why? Because we don't have the testing capacity and the infrastructure in order to keep up perfectly with what's going on with everybody. I've known a bunch of people who've had COVID and they're not even counted in the official statistics that just came out that over 1 million people got COVID in one day, tested positive in one day. Can I add at least like 3 or 4 to that because I know them personally and they didn't get officially tested. So what's the problem with this theory? The problem with this theory is over 825,000 American corpses and over 5 million worldwide corpses. That's the problem with that theory. Now, by the way, he's not entirely wrong when he says, hey, our immune system is a marvel. It's incredible. That's the whole point of a vaccine. The vaccine basically baits your body into responding to the virus even though you don't have the virus, so you create the antibodies and the T cells and you have the immunity if you get it again. Or you certainly have. Now look, the vaccine isn't perfect. It's not like you're 100% protected against ever getting the virus at all. No, but you are 90% protected or just over 90% protected against severe illness, hospitalization, and death. With the original vaccines, with the original COVID variant, you were very protected against even getting it. It was very few people who got the original vaccine even got COVID. But then with Delta, okay, that dropped a little bit too. Now with Omicron, it dropped again. So yes, you're not very protected against getting it at all. But you are very protected against severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So yeah, if you think the immune system is a marvel, well, that's exactly why we created the vaccines. So that it works in tandem with your immune system, where your immune system learns what that virus would be like if you were to get it. And so that when you do get it, you either don't get sick, or if you do get sick, it's a very mild form of it. God's vaccine is better than the COVID vaccine. This argument, it's always so stupid because it just disregarded all the dead bodies. But also, there's plenty of things that exist in the world that are nominally made by God, if you're inclined to think that way, that are terrible. There are children with cancer. Did God want that? There are tsunamis that kill thousands of people. There are earthquakes to do the same. There are volcanoes. There are super volcanoes. If God's so genius, why did he make us with so many flaws? There are parts of our body that we don't even use anymore. Like, what's that part? I don't know why I'm blanking on this part of the body. And now I'm bothered by it, and I'm going to look it up while I'm live on air, even though it's a waste of time. What part of our body do we not need? Appendix. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, what a great design we have, where there are parts of our body that we don't even need. We can point to all sorts of things in the world that are quote unquote natural, that are here because of God, that are terrible. Anthrax is natural. I think anthrax is deadly. It's created in, like, when an animal's dying and decaying, anthrax is somehow created in that process. Parasites are natural, are from God. So this notion of, like, well, why do we think we can make anything better than God? God's vaccine is the best. And I love how he uses his personal experience to justify his whole worldview on this. That's such a classic far-right thing to do. Well, I got it, and I wasn't even that sick. How do you explain that? There are plenty of people who get it and don't get that sick. There are plenty of people who were infected and never felt a single symptom, even if they're unvaccinated. There's also plenty of people who get it and die almost immediately. And everything in between that you could think of. So, this is the nature of this virus. It's weird, but it's the nature of the virus. If you weren't very sick and you got better quickly, okay, more power to you, but not everybody's Ron Johnson. There's all sorts of people who react all sorts of different ways. There are people who are immunocompromised and even after getting vaccinated, pass away. Now, granted, that's a very tiny number, but Colin Powell, for example, and the anti-vaxxers really latched onto that one as if they disproved the entire vaccine. But, like, you got to do everything you can within your power to protect yourself within reason. And it's not that much to ask people to get a shot. It's really not. I'm vaccinated. I had 0 symptoms. After the first shot, I had a tiny headache, but then after the second shot, I had nothing. Nothing. What's the motivation for undermining the safest, most effective way we have to protect you and to get out of this pandemic faster? Why? Why would you do it? And really, I have no other answer other than he's just not that bright. But he kind of proves my point, because what's his argument? Well, I got better, and God's vaccine is better than anything humans can create. I'll say it one more time. The human immune system is a marvel in many respects, which is why you should get the vaccine. Because your body reacts like you have the virus and gives you the protection even though you don't have the virus. It is a wonderful answer. Listen, there's a reason why polio is eradicated, you know? How many lives have vaccines saved throughout modern history? Seriously. It's got to be in the millions, right? We have all these vaccines, polio, rubella, mumps, tetanus, all these measles. For whatever reason, people are stuck on this one. There are people who have their kids vaccinated for all the other things, and they're like, great, but this one they get stuck on. Don't be misled by charlatans. Most of the people talking about this stuff are just wrong if they're taking the position that it's not safe or it's not effective or whatever. You don't want to be in league with this guy, right? Ron Johnson, because look at the sorts of arguments he uses. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.